Welcome to the Inspiring Victories Show, where we help you double your business, double your impact, and change the world. I could not be more excited than I am today because Nicole Martin is here with us. She is the Chief Empowerment Officer for HR Boost, and they are an incredible company. We are very honored to have you on the show, of course, Nicole. Nicole has written 6 books. They've all been really terrific. We'll leave them in the show notes below. I recommend every single one of them. She's a wonderful speaker. I absolutely love seeing you on stage, Nicole, and has a lot to say about HR and how it impacts everything in terms of the growth and the sustainability and the success of your company. So we're lucky to have Nicole Martin with us today. Hello. Thank you for
Hello,
being here.
beautiful. So nice to see you.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
having
Nice to
me.
see you. Delighted, delighted, delighted. All right. So what are the things you're getting the big inquiries for right now? What are things that people are concerned about that you're helping people with? What's one or two of the big ones right now?
It's interesting because as much as the talent emergency has been taking place for years now, right? It's got this perfect storm of all these external influences. And now in the United States specifically, it's all about these external regulations, the tariffs, the cost, the inflation, the economy. There's a number of different things. And then there's this changing dynamic between the federal agencies within my world with the DEI changes, the operational changes that are happening in terms of what's defined as discrimination versus not. Even these legal world implications that hit every business have been in flux. And so I think it lends itself to almost every business owner almost becoming either, if it's not fearful, it can, and reactionary, it can almost be where you become complacent and just numbed by the noise of the constant aspects of everything that comes at a small business owner or even a mid-sized growing business. Well, then you have like the small 10% of the psychographic or demographic of these business owners that are out there that are inspired and see it as opportunity and are jumping on it. And those people are also out there. So I think the common top 3 things that are coming in right now are just, talent attraction, still just looking at how you're going to do skill development with your talent, and then succession planning with a lot of people still retiring in the boomer segment of population. The Gen Xers are now really this most skilled mass coming forth. Millennials, a lot of us thought of them as the young people, but all of them are starting to settle down, have families, and it has a boom right now in our backyard in Chicago. There's building everywhere, right? There's just all this business that's coming in terms of building first-time homes and just everything that's happening with row houses, and just something that is so pre-2008 that is really something to see. And so I think that's adding to that industry really trying to make their talent, not buy their talent. So it's just really always falls into the same kind of sections, I feel. They're broad brushes: talent attraction, talent retention, skill, succession planning, skill building within green talent that needs more skills than you need, and who's going to teach them and how are we going to get them to productivity faster. So there's just a lot of things that come in within that umbrella.
Well, and I think some things just never change. You're always going to have to plan for succession. You're always going to have to make sure you're up-leveling the talent that you have and attracting the best people and keeping them and finding a way to do that. What is the best way to attract the best talent and to keep them? I know you know this better than anyone.
I always say that it's a culture invitation. So a lot of companies out there put out these job postings and they put out this skills and education experience, and it really changed. It changed a number of years ago to like just lifestyle. And so when you think about post-COVID world, it's really about how do we attract the people that are looking for the lifestyle that we provide. And some companies have a lifestyle that might be a Monday through Friday kind of grind. Some have night shifts, some have flexibility or hybrid components to it. Whatever it is, you're really trying to pitch a culture invitation based on what's the lifestyle that you want that we can provide that fits within your whole life for whole health. And when you think about that, it's a big difference in terms of what was given to you and I, Sarah, 20, 30 years ago. When we were looking at jobs, it was all about where'd you go to school? How many years of experience do you have? Can you be in the office Monday through Friday? Are you willing to work overtime? That's an old conversation. I think it's much more about, as I call it a culture invitation. And people have put their families first, their health first, sometimes their qualitative, just what they need to bring home, their check around their family, right? So it used to be, I need to earn money. And now it's like, no, I might need to have a good quality of life where I have time to exercise. I take care of my grandmother and my mother. I have children that I'm raising, whatever it might be. And my life, how I earn money must work around that. So you find people making very different choices than maybe they would have in the past.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And well, they should. I mean, we're
Yeah.
hitting a point where there are so many opportunities and there are so many ways to make money. And you want to go someplace that is a culture fit, and people are finally aware of that. I think it always made sense. It's just something that people didn't do. Again, it was
Agreed.
always, as you always point out this to me, which is, so somebody has 5 years of experience. It doesn't mean that they're going to fit into your culture or be any good. So why are you saying must have 5 years if it's not really what the job requires? It maybe requires more of that culture fit, and somebody who's coming to work is totally psyched and excited to be there, where they can't wait to come to work, and or to work from home part of the time, or whatever that structure is, and they don't want to stop at the end of the day because it's what they love and what they're passionate about.
Well, that's when you've tapped into somebody's discretionary effort. If it's something where they're loving their work.
Tell me about how you find people where, again, they are loving it. They can't wait to come to work and they don't want to quit at the end of the day, though they, of course, should. How do you tap into that?
Well, first, you have to find out what somebody's passion. So I think asking people open-ended questions when you meet them about what is their passion, what are they hoping to learn about, what excites them. And these are things that people might not look at as ways that they can earn money. But once you know those things and you can integrate it to some of the capabilities and competencies in a given role, then you can link those two things to build passion into the role. And most people are looking for autonomy in their role, looking for the ability to be able to have some effect over change and freedom of thinking. And if it's a monotonous job, then they just need parameters around what that is, but they still feel a sense of self in their role that's more than a job. That's how you can start to tap into connecting their heart to their mind and their physical being, if it's a physical in presence job, an essential job where you're showing up, so to speak. But if you can connect those things, then it becomes more meaningful to a person. And that's where you automatically can get into the discretionary aspect, of like what they're willing to do, or doing it, like you say, without even being asked. And honestly, sometimes people are really looking to be part of a team, to be part of something bigger than themselves. And so the components of how they work with teammates, the level of collaboration, the level of psychological safety, which is a huge thing that still has to take place in a lot of companies, that is something that can transform somebody's work experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was interesting. I know when I first got some of our current team members, I have, I love my team more than anything.
Yes.
World aside from my husband and you, and my kids. But it was interesting to hear them say, nobody's mean to each other. And I went,
well, amen for that.
I couldn't fathom
a lot of people just don't even want to deal with mean anymore. And some companies.
And why should they, But I think, I got these great people from these major companies where it was pretty cutthroat, and where there was only one next position and there was no path to do the things that you were passionate about. And so
I call that evidence. You have evidence, Sarah, of the talent emergency, which is these people that and they're able to jump ship from what we know.
And I don't blame them. I don't blame them. I really don't blame them. I mean, some of the people that we have are, a couple people from the Philippines, as you know, and I had one where
I have people that work for me from the Philippines. I love them.
Oh, they're amazing. Yeah. Well, and Leslie started us with this and then brought us more terrific people, and she's sourced people for LexisNexis. And so now she sources people for us. But she said, to be one of the gals that we have is a single mom, and she was having to fly to another island on Monday and not see her children until Friday. So her parents were having to step in, and sometimes they'd say, well, we need you to work the weekend, and so she'd be gone 2 straight weeks. And she said she would have taken, even though we poached her away from a very large company, she said she would have taken less for the fact that, again, what you're talking about, a culture fit, a lifestyle fit of being able to be around her children. And then to hear her say, everybody supports everybody. If somebody has a parent pass away or gets ill, everybody else swoops in and helps. And I was really proud of them for, they created that culture. I mean, I think that I had something to do with it. But when you see those things, you think, okay, this is where you feel like you're becoming the leader that these people deserve. They deserve the best because they're amazing.
Well, and that's a symptom of technology and how technology's changed the world. There's no boundaries anymore.
Hasn't it? Yeah. Well, I mean, as you know, I mean, I'm in Europe at the moment and I work with clients in the US and Canada and Mexico and England and
Yeah.
Ireland and Portugal, so it's amazing how much things have changed. And in a lot of ways for the better, really. I mean,
Oh,
there's no reason to drag somebody into the office if they can flourish in another way. So I see some companies though that are kind of forcing people to go back to work full time in the office and they're seeing benefit from that. Other companies let people be hybrid, sometimes in, sometimes out, maybe come in for certain kinds of meetings. Some people are letting people work 100% remote. How do you think people should navigate that now that we're all used to the different options that are out there? How do you think people should approach that with their companies?
yeah. I think it's very unique to industries and then also teams, right? So it's very diversified, like what you were just pointing out. But I think the most important thing to keep it, cohesive as a team is to have a communication cadence. And so really when you think of the
Oh,
generational aspects of teams and even the age differences, part of the reason you have mandate back to work and some people wanting to come back to work is some bigger companies that have a lot of young influx of talent. And Gen Z, the younger talent that's coming in right now, they are truly career minded. And as a result of that, they want to see the person that's skilled, that has that tribal knowledge. They want to be
mhm.
mentored and work side by side with people that this older generation is sort of like, no, I've earned my stripes and I want freedom and autonomy. But that's what's going on there. There's still some generational challenges within the dynamic of the age diversification of a talent portfolio within a company. So
And I know
communication cadence,
you're speaking on that really soon. You're speaking on the different
yes.
generations and how important that still is. What's something you're going to be explaining to people in your speech about when it comes to the different generations and people and individual people have individual thoughts and needs and feelings. So we can't lump everybody, in X or in Gen Z together, but there are themes and there are patterns
Yeah, it's just
of course.
generational pattern studies. But
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
each study follows like 20 years, right? So they
Mhm.
still have studying to do on the Gen Z generation, right? But there are
Sure.
studies already released showing how they're not as entrepreneurial as the millennial generation per se, that said a lot of millennials just went straight into entrepreneurship and skipped a lot of steps, right? That Gen
Mhm.
Xers couldn't believe, or even boomers. So each generation has its like signature on how they've
Mhm.
changed things. But
Mhm.
I think that if you really think about what drives each generation, there's different training and there's different rewards that each generation wants within the workplace. And so those are things that I'll speak about when I speak at
Can
this next
you
upcoming event.
tell us a
And
little
I
bit about that since we can't get everybody
Yeah,
to show
yeah.
up at your
If you
speech?
think about some of it, a lot of boomers really want to see rewards in the bank or on the wall. And that's something very different from the younger generations that's coming out. A boomer is somebody that truly has one step foot out, but they really want to contribute to something that's legacy building. They want to know their work was meaningful. They want to know that they left an imprint. And that's still a huge
Mhm.
opportunity for companies to hang on to that talent, to get them working with the young talent that wants to learn from these people. But at the same
Mhm.
time, they have to learn that they can collaborate. And true collaboration
Yeah.
is where you, like Sarah, you bring something to the table, I bring something to the table. We share our wisdom and our views, and then we can come together with something new. And that
Mhm.
newness that you create together, that is the benefit of the value to the company. Because if you take something like a digital native and you take the knowledge of somebody who's over here who didn't even grow up with smartphones, and they work together to create maybe Instagram posts together that the younger person knows how to do, and this person doesn't even have an account, all of a sudden you have this richness that benefits the company and those two individuals. It adds richness to their work experience in life. So there's so much
Mm.
opportunity if you can get them to get over the us versus them or how we're different and much more focus on how we're the same. The only way companies can do that is by creating shared values. And so shared values are something that no matter where I come from or you come from, or how old I am, or how long I've been here, or the color of my skin, or any of these other definitions that diversify us, I think that the most important thing is knowing what we believe in this team or in this company, our belief statements. And those kind of things are much more created by the we voice of that culture invitation that I mentioned, where everybody here knows that we believe in this. So, like, for example, in my own business, we believe in life affirming work, right? We believe in being driven to achieve. We believe in being proactive, not responsive. We believe that it's really important to choose to learn. So you end up getting these belief systems that everybody on that team or in that company identifies with brings commonality between us, a tribe of us, that is very different than I statements that are top down in companies. Some companies would have called them core values, but they weren't core values that I know them. A lot of them were why people get hired, promoted, fired, walked in the door, or walked in. And so those kind of core values are not the core values I'm talking about. Those are I statements, which are service ideals. They're much more about how we present ourselves externally to our clients, not internal to the team, of how we treat each other when the stuff hits the fan. So when the stuff hits the fan, how do we treat each other and what do we believe? Those are the things that create this we that has strength and actually adds a competitive advantage to companies when people might call their talent and want to be stolen or come work somewhere else, right? Or would you leave? Companies that have this built into the fabric of their organizations and their teams, they have good retention.
I can only imagine that would have a big impact. How do you build that into the fabric of your company, as you just said? Are there one or two secrets to making that happen?
I think the first step is you have to have the executive leadership on the same page. Executive leadership has to be on the same page, not siloed. You have to make sure that they actually value the voice of the people and that they're willing to listen to it. There are actual companies that you'll pitch a culture survey to and they don't want to do it. Imagine that, right? And some of that has to do with hearing things that maybe they didn't want to hear. So really great leaders are actually open to two-way communication, reciprocity and communication. So I say the first challenge would be having leadership at the helm of a company that's willing to hear. And most often it should be done anonymous and by a third party, so it's trusted, because often companies will do their own little internal surveys, but they don't realize that nobody's telling you the truth because everybody knows that you know who said what. Nobody's going to be truthful still. So I think it's really important to invest in a third party survey that helps you get anonymous data and aggregate data so that you actually hear the voice of your people authentically, and then tell them what you heard and do something about it. And this is all really important so that people start realizing that you're listening to them, because then you create proactive people that realize that their voice matters. And the best thing we can all know is that frontline ambassadors in any company are seeing everything. And I mean, think of a Nordstrom's example of customer service. These people, you want to hear what your employees are thinking and seeing when they're serving your clients and your teams. And the only way to do that is to ask them and to listen.
And sometimes even if you can't do something that they recommended, just the fact that you heard them and you said, hey, that would be great. I wish we could. We can't because of X, Y, and Z or Z over here in Europe. But, we can. However, we hear you. And, a year from now, we're going to revisit this because then maybe we can. But at least
you can build energy around the cans. It's like that yes and. You know the yes and in improv.
Oh, I do know yes and. I know it so well.
Yeah. Yes, you know this, Sarah. So even if it's something that you can't do for whatever reason, you can actually have shared performance goals around it that are results driven in your organization, and a shared performance goal. Well, if we hit this, then we can do this. And that empowers.
Then it's motivating and empowering. Yeah.
Create shared energy and momentum around something that everybody wants. It's a win-win.
And I think I love the fact that you call yourself the Chief Empowerment Officer, because I think you really take that so seriously. And again, it isn't about empowering all the other people who, again, people come to work because they want to do a great job and they want
I believe that. Not everybody believes that, Sarah, but I believe that. Yes.
Well, there are some that, we've all had employees that just didn't maybe match our values or something, but they don't last long. But the people that are there and that you respect and admire and I think are amazing, they want to do a good job. I think everybody wants to do a good job.
I absolutely believe that.
And be a part of something exciting and a culture and a sense of a work environment that's doing something important and valuable and good.
I think that we should invite people to lead from wherever they are.
Yeah, exactly. Wherever they are, because we are all leaders. I don't care if somebody's the receptionist or, the janitor, the custodian.
Well, we teach organizational leadership. So organizational leadership is different than individual leadership. But
I think you're right. I think what you're saying that from an organizational standpoint is super important. And, you're making sure that you're empowering everybody, which, I think doesn't that give you more opportunities for some of those people to move up into bigger and better positions of leadership too? Correct?
Well, I think that that's where you're talking about people who could be managers of choice. And those are people who actually skill build, brand build, trust build, right? They build up more talent. They actually invest in the people that they're working with, and they ultimately create new opportunity. And as a result of that, they replace themselves. And that's how people can move up, is by creating new opportunity around themselves. A lot of people, you've all worked with somebody who tried to like heard their work and was afraid of teaching you maybe what they did, or wouldn't share because they wanted that job security. And that is really the furthest thing from the truth. The more you teach others and create and build and invest in brand build, trust build, and skill build with people you're working with, the more you create more opportunity for yourself, because someone you're working for will see that you do that. And that's when you can actually rise and show your leadership and have the opportunity to replace yourself and grow into a new role.
And that, I think, is part of that, the shared culture you want to see within, and you already have that within your organization, and you show other companies how to do it, which is extraordinary.
Innovation and change comes from learning organizations. Yeah.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. I love that. Yeah, I've always admired the way that you frame everything. It's just always, you're really brilliant. And yeah, I'm a big fan. I can't tell. Thank you. Thank you. I am so incredibly honored to have you as a part of the Inspiring Victory tribe at the Inspiring Victory Show. Please do us a favor. We really need your help. Please like, subscribe, share, write a comment. It makes a huge difference with how many people we can reach here at the Inspiring Victory Show, and it makes a big difference to me personally. I want to make sure that we're providing content to as many people as we possibly can so they can grow and succeed. So we'd love to have you continue your membership here at the Inspiring Victory Show. It's free. Helping us out costs nothing, but it makes a huge difference in how many people we can help. So double your business, double your impact, and change the world. And thank you so much for being a part of this extraordinary community. Thank you. Tell us a little bit about what you do for companies, what you guys love to do the most, so that if somebody needs somebody if they need some HR fractionally or in an interim situation, or it's just on one specific thing, can you tell us a little bit about what you guys do that might be helpful and then people might want to reach out to you about?
Yeah, I would say HR Boost really was founded after just this idea that CEOs and CFOs out there that were in smaller to mid-sized companies, research companies with like 10 employees to 500 is our sweet spot at HR Boost. But I think that we provide them service at their pace and budget on an a la carte project or retainer basis. And so we even have a phone client program we're the phone client resource for the Landscape Illinois Association. So associations sometimes put HR Boost on the back end so that ultimately people just have a triage lifeline. I would like them to call just so that they actually talk with somebody who's educated within the field of HR, because some of the smallest companies, no good deed goes unpunished, and my heart bleeds for them. It's like, if we could just help those people, for all they know, the second person they hire could be their most important hiring deal in terms of how they negotiate that from employment at will or an employment agreement, or right. So all these different steps that happen that companies face, we like to be able to say, it's not consequential to have a good lifeline, to have someone on speed dial that's educated in the topic that you need. And that's how my business grew to be $1 million just business. It's just, ultimately, we have 20 people on my team, and it's truly where we're happy to serve all these middle market companies that couldn't afford someone that was executive level in HR, providing them that service. We don't believe in HR by PDF. Right? We actually are proudest of the companies that let us build HR from scratch. And even the oldest companies that had HR, it's still HR from scratch, because HR has changed significantly in recent years, and really re-energizing it and bringing energy into something where it becomes that competitive advantage. That's our favorite work, and working ourselves out of a job. We work ourselves out of a job, unlike other HR outsourcing firms. Some companies out there like to sell commodities and then they stack them and then it's hard to work out of them. We are not software as a service. We are humans. We come in and we implement, we advise, right? We build an HR department. When it's really fun, we partner with a team that wants to be on the winner's list for being a best place to work. They stay there after we leave, right? And then we place a maintainer, someone that's younger in my field, we give back to them. That can be anywhere from a 3-year process to a 5-year process. And that's where we play. It is truly our favorite work to help our clients realize value from HR, to see ROI, see HR as a profit center, not an overhead department. We love
Tell me
them.
about that. Tell me
Well,
about that.
I
That's
think a lot of
fascinating.
people think that HR is this overhead department.
Mm-hmm.
But truly, if you're thinking of the productivity of the employees, discretionary effort that you're tapping into your employees, which we talked about, if you're thinking about the energy to be able to attract and retain your talent and be able to actually have everybody work cohesively together through collaboration and innovation and creative learning and moving that thing forward from leadership perspectives, oh my gosh, that's truly the opportunity of turning your HR department into a profit center. It's truly just going to show that every productivity, if you have metrics, if you can get to the place where it's sophisticated to where you have metrics, not all companies are that fancy, to be honest, in the middle market, but we can actually get them to the place where they can show their metrics of their ROI in return. If you can actually build a company that's like a winning workplace for everything that you have, it's proven that you're actually going to have about 17 cents on every single dollar back into your bank account per person. And so you can do metrics on your dashboards to show your ROI based on these initiatives. But the first thing you have to do is start to just say, how are we doing and what can we do better? And hearing, like I said, just listening was that first step. And so there's so much that can be done just by creating a realness. And a lot of people have learned the hard way that they don't speak up in their workplaces if they're working for somebody that has grudges and holds things against them and gets too involved. And so sometimes our HR departments really provide a great service to our clients as just a buffer, which is to buffer their management teams that might be green and work behind as a service department to the management teams and the leadership, so that ultimately everything has that professionalism and projects back to the employees in a unified message, so that people don't get lost in all of that happens.
Ultimately, it ends up being about people, and people are complicated.
Oh, everything's about people. Absolutely.
Support. It's always about people. Everything's about people. Yeah. I mean, I see all these companies that are like, we're just going to throw a whole new software system at it. It's going to be fabulous. And then a month later, I talk to them and they're like, oh, nobody's using it. I'm like, well,
yeah, these big decisions that are made without the considerations
you didn't get any buy-in or did what everybody wanted, So yeah, I think
talk about spending money.
Yeah, AI is great, software is great, but again, sometimes I've discovered that sometimes your people can come up with a solution that costs zero and is brilliant.
Absolutely,
or costs less or costs more, but is totally worth it. So I love when you start to realize just how smart your people are, and if you've got people who are smarter than you are in certain areas, you get to watch the magic of who they can become, and it's a
well, you can cognitively assess your talent now. And cognitive assessments really only came around in the late 90s in the psychological world. And if you think about that, there's a lot of assessments out there. There's 88,000 assessments in the marketplace, but only 5% to 10% of them right now are cognitive, which actually measure how people think. And true diversity is not where we come from. In my mind, it's how we think. And if you can engineer your team to have every cognitive thought across the spectrum, a Likert scale, then you can actually engineer a team to solve any problem when they come together at the table.
Wow.
It's fascinating. So
that is
that's
fascinating.
Something we did with engineering teams. And I write about that in the Talent Emergency. It's chapter 4. But this is something that cognitive assessments that are out there are really amazing at showing people how to actually realize that none of us are good at everything, that we all can be good at something, however. And the idea is knowing what you're really good at and then looking to your teams to create something that they're good at that you're not good at, to build true appreciation between the team and then problem solve together.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And so true. Yeah. So true. I think every plus is a minus and every minus is a plus. It all depends upon how you're using it and how you're applying it. And, I think people who are in the wrong jobs because they have these incredible talents and they should be in a totally different arena, it does them such a disservice.
Oh my God, it's like a whole generation of people.
It's a nightmare. Yeah. Whereas if everybody's doing the things that they love, they're passionate about, they're good at, they have a natural ability for, and again, in that cognitive assessment can tell you so much about that. And most people never think to do any of those.
It's a great way to onboard somebody, really, because if you can get a cognitive assessment and you sit down with them, you can show them gifts. and show them their cognitive gifts and show them
And
why you
sometimes
hired
they don't
them.
even, I'm betting, and you probably told me this before, but I'm betting they don't even know some of their own gifts
Oh,
until you
they
sit
won't.
down and
Yeah.
go,
Most
don't you?
people
Oh,
don't know.
I only use that at home. But yeah, well, that would be really applicable here.
Most
So
people aren't aware because they
like
take them for granted.
nurturing that talent and finding out where their true strengths, talents, abilities, and passions lie. So I think your whole company is about how do we bring out the best in your company. And
Mhm.
that's what HR should be, but most people don't think of it that way. And I think that's why I find what you do admirable and
Oh, thank
exciting.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be 15
All right.
years this summer.
15
I've been in
years.
business. Yeah.
Oh,
Mhm.
wow. I think it's wonderful. And you've done so much, and your team is just flourishing, which is
I'm
lovely.
so
But
blessed
you
by my
practice what you preach in terms of bringing people in that are going to be a great culture fit, and where it's going to be that invitation is something they are truly excited about. And they get there and it matches, what
yeah.
some people can
Oh,
have. Yeah,
that's a big one, Sarah. And it
I
matches.
bet.
Do you know how many
Yeah, I
companies
think so.
onboard
Yeah.
and do all this sales to bring people to their company and then it's not what was they were sold?
And then they feel like it's a bait and switch situation of, oh,
This
you're gonna, yeah,
matching was the
right.
deal.
It's gonna be, oh yeah,
Yeah.
you're gonna be able to do hybrid and you're gonna get to work with great people. And we're also supportive. And you get there and they go, no, actually we expect you to be here at 6 a.m. and work until midnight. And
Right.
and everybody's gonna be mean to you. Like, wait, you said, but you said, but you said. So yeah,
Well, and the
it
gen
has to
talent
match.
that's out there doesn't have the tolerance for it anymore. You'll talk to a lot of people that'll
I
be
don't
like,
think
people didn't
so.
show up
Well,
for the
who
interview,
should?
or they showed up for days and they just disappeared. There's a lot of job
They
abandonment
ghost
going
everybody.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
a lot
I
of
think
job
they
abandonment.
should. I mean, if they see that it's not going to match what you are selling, and nowadays it was always a sales process to find the right people. And now I think we're starting to see that things are just shifting in the
Yeah.
way that we're finding people. But yeah, I think again, having that culture invitation, which is a lovely way of putting it, and have it match what the real culture is. And
Yes.
so you don't want to get them. I would think if they got in and they found out 2 minutes later, they would be gone. And yeah, you
I
would
think people have to look at it as like a
trouble.
party or something. Everybody's been invited to a party.
Invitation to a party. I
Yeah,
love
because
that.
it's that simple. People kind of think it's really complicated and it's not. Like, you've been
Invitation.
invited to a party, Sarah. I've been invited to a party. Within
I
30
love
seconds,
parties.
you decide if you're going to go or not. You decide if it's going to
Right.
be something that you want to be at. You
Right.
go there and then you decide what to wear, what to bring. You decide before you leave if you want to come again, if you want to tell your friends. It's the same thing with a job opportunity.
Mhm.
Did you invite them? Did you tell them what to bring? Did you tell them what to wear and how to behave and what the behaviors were, whatever, early on, what we believe and all of that? And then do you
Mhm.
think that they'd want to bring their friends in return?
Ta-da. Yeah. And I think it's very similar with a lot of what we do in terms of marketing and sales and business growth, doubling people's businesses often in less than a year. It's the same sort of thing. It's an invitation to do business with this company. And that culture, that person, it's also a culture invitation, really,
Oh,
because,
absolutely. For
they
the
have to
people.
work, yeah, for those clients, again, they may be working with us for a year or two, and they need to see what that culture invitation is. So I think it has application in multiple different areas, which is
Oh,
fantastic.
yeah. Well, with companies that are scaling fast, like some of the companies you're working with, Sarah, there's huge
Mhm.
transformational change that must take place. And there's
Mhm.
opportunity for young new leaders that can step up because then the more
Mhm.
seasoned leaders have to step in new directions. And ultimately, if there's somebody who has to be replaced or if their contingency plans need to be built around somebody who's trying to exit the organization, there's so much communication that has to happen amongst all of those people. And if you think about it, it's opportunity for everyone if the communication plan informs everybody as such, how they actually are part of this success, how they have to move and operate, put their handprint on this in order for this whole machine to move in that
Right.
direction, right? It takes a lot of communication and team transparency and understanding around what those opportunities are. And not that their challenges aren't there, because there's significant challenges with high growth or with growth companies. But
Oh,
as
yeah.
much as
This
you
is
can actually empower people to problem solve around that and bring them along on it, they all feel still part of that together. If you capture that energy, that's when you can see the realization of it happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think what you said earlier about, people feeling as though they're part of the solution and are helping make things happen, challenges are part of the adventure, I think. I mean, nobody climbs to Mount Everest. Like my friend Suzanne Nance, who's, first American woman to get the Explorer's Grand Slam. She's climbed, Everest and, all the biggest peaks on every continent and both
Incredible.
poles. Yeah, she's awesome. We love her. But the idea that, she didn't say, "Oh, I'm going to go to climb Mount Everest because it's easy." She went because it was hard and because of who it would make her to accomplish that. As, Jim said, Jim Rohn used to say, it's not what you get, it's who you become. And, once you become that new person, you can never go back and you don't want to. And I think that's part of the adventure of it. Once I realized that we weren't burdening people with the fact that there's always challenges in a business, in every business, but they get the opportunity to be on the adventure and they get the opportunity to help with those challenges to get up to the summit. And once I started seeing how exciting it is and how much people love a challenge, or at least the right people that are a good
Some
fit
people,
for
not everybody loves the challenge.
they're the right people for our culture tend to really embrace those because businesses are about problem solving, a lot of problem solving. So we tend to look for people and we'll ask people about their ability to do that kind of problem solving, and have been blessed with some extraordinary people in that area. So I can see where you're going with that. And a lot of what you're saying leads up to that point of, like you said, everybody going the same direction, wanting the same things. But it's that communication plan. Tell me a little bit about a communication plan that would work if you were rolling out a new initiative or a new sales plan or a new technique or a tactic or something that you were going to do, or having to pivot, do something a little bit differently. How do you roll out those plans so that everybody's on board and understands and is a part of the process? What is the best way to do that?
I think that it's really been something that came out of the difference of how teams are operating, right? A number of people had to start managing people remotely, and it became much more important for the purposes of building cohesion around a team and clarifying expectations around scheduling and logistics. So I think that when you look at the plan overall, it's just understanding and being more open about expectations. Some people used to just take expectations for granted when they'd be in the same office because you just get it from your desk and you could just go and talk to somebody and interrupt their day and they'd be gracious enough to let you in. But I think that now that there's all this segregation by proximity with teams and everything, when you look at a communication plan, the first thing is, what is the person who's judging everything or who's responsible or accountable for the P&L maybe? What is this person's expectations? And once you have those expectations, then you can actually start to communicate and build branding and, I guess, happiness, if you will, around the ways we can get people together. And so some of those things in terms of communication could be, we're going to have town hall meetings, or we're going to have monthly check-ins, or we're going to have weekly check-ins, or we're going to have daily huddle meetings, or just all these different mechanisms for communication now. A lot of companies are using Slack, there's Teams, there might be different channels that you organize for particular employee resource groups, ERGs they're called, where people can chat and become and get familiarity with people that of like mind on similar topics. So there's all these things that can be built. The question is, does everybody know what they are? What are the standard ones in our company? And what are the parameters in those communication vehicles, if you will? And then if there's an expectation that I'm supposed to be doing this, that it's not just out there and it's nice to have, but there's expectations I should be participating and contributing and posting all this, those expectations are clear. The other thing is the one-on-one, whoever's responsible for my performance management achievement and judging my pay, and who I call when I'm sick, I call them like admin managers. Your admin manager and you must have one-on-one understanding of your favorite way to communicate. Is it text? Is it phone call? Is it email? How and for what purposes? And so that can be a communication memo between those two people that's an agreement of, when X happens, I want you to pick up the phone and call me. When this happens, I want you to go ahead and email me. Don't expect maybe a response for 2 days or 24 hours, or right. So parameters and thresholds around things so that there's clear understanding on what communication mediums to use and when. And then which ones bring fun into my day too. They shouldn't just all be work related. There should be a sense of, how do I connect with my peers? How do we share information? Where do I go for my questions? So it can be pretty comprehensive, but it has certain components to it that must be built in for people to be productive.
Absolutely. That was extraordinary. Thank you so much. I really loved every moment of that.
It's
What would
diversified in
be
every company. I mean,
It would be different in every company, but
Mhm.
at least, but you covered what things we should at least be thinking about, and that's
Mhm.
where it all starts. Is the the frame
The
around
concept,
how
yeah.
we yeah, how we begin to move forward with that truth. So, what advice would you have for again, yeah, an up and coming leader, a rapidly growing business, these small to medium sized business owners that are so inspiring that we built this show for? What would be your best advice for them?
I think the greatest thing is to realize that you're not alone. When I started my company, I was a consultant many years ago, right? And then I became an entrepreneur and I was in business. I didn't even know I was in business during that journey, right? And then it's grown. And over the years, that's an emotional journey that you go through. I think it's always good to have a coach. I was in Vistage for 10 years. Prior to that, I was in a vetted business leadership exchange group. I've always had a community of peer people of like mind that I connect with, that make sure that you keep you on your A game, but give you a safe place to talk and not be alone. No person at the helm of business should feel so lonely. It can be a lonely seat. And from an HR perspective, we do a lot of just safe solution and benefit building and the things they want to do for their employees from their HR strategy, because that sometimes is really hard when they're trying to serve everybody, and nobody can serve everybody. And they're not the Messiah, right? They have to be somebody that can actually just be unbiased, actually, but be decisive. You don't want to be where you're trying to do everything by consensus. That can lead to problems too. So role clarity is big. And I think that the most important thing is for that person to not feel alone and know that there's great resources out there available to them so that they can problem solve and be the best they can be.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for being here
Yeah.
on the Inspiring Victory
So good
Show.
to see you,
You
Sarah.
you are somebody who inspires me every time I talk to you, and I love the work that you do, and that's why we keep you
Oh,
on
I
speed
love
dial for our
working with you is
clients.
amazing too. You helped me with my
Thank
keynote for my
you.
Doing Purpose book, which is
That's right, way back when. Yeah, I love
yeah.
that. And you are a wonderful speaker for certain, for certain. Well, and again, for those who are kind enough to watch our show, thank you for being
Oh
here,
yeah,
a part of
thank
the
you.
tribe. We're love to have you. Glad that this was hopefully very, very helpful for you. I'm sure it was. But again, thank you for being a part of the tribe. Thank you for liking and sharing, and all of that makes a huge difference. And again, being a part of the Inspiring Victory Show tribe, and do something brave every day. You're seeing right in front of you somebody who does that just as a part of her being.
Aw.
And so that is your marching order, so you can double your business, double your impact, and change the world. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And thank you, Nicole
Thank
Martin,
you,
for being
Sarah.
on the show. Nice
Yes,
to
and I
get to
love
see
your
you.
team and I love the way you guys are making the world smaller.
It's a whole world is a small town now. I've figured that out. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Lovely to see you. And thanks for being on the show. Take care.
Thank you.